Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Planted for Purpose podcast. My name is Kaya and I'm your host for this podcast. If you're new here, this podcast is just about life, the ups and downs that come with that, whilst simultaneously trying to put Christ in the center of it all, whilst trying to also figure out our purpose. So, if you're new here, welcome. If you're not new here, welcome back. So, I feel like it's been quite a while since I've last recorded a podcast video. That's just me trying to balance life and work and everything alongside trying to find time to record, but I will get better at this, I promise. Today's my birthday, and I feel like something was laid in my heart to discuss and share with everyone. I feel like with today, with this new year that's coming upon me, I have just been reflecting on past years and how I've been in past years and all the changes that have happened in the last year or the last couple of years. Changes that had to do with me, changes that have to do with the circumstances around me, as well as the changes that I've seen with the people around me. And as I was reflecting about these changes, I have also been reflecting about the aspects of myself that I haven't changed as well. Not because I can't change, but because I have refused to change it, because I've been either lazy to change it, because I've not been motivated, because I procrastinated. And I've just been reflecting about how this reluctance to change has held me back, as well as has delayed some of my prayers that I've obviously requested to God, asking God for certain things. But I'm just realizing, how can God fulfill these requests when I refuse to also plant the seed that's needed for there to change my ways as well, to that's needed for me to get there. And I felt like this is something that so many people would be able to relate to. I think the biggest issue I've seen with Christians or Christianity as a whole is we want God. Like, we want God in our heart, we want God in our space, but we do not want to make the change to accommodate him. And our God is such a large God, like, not a small God, he is large, and the space that we need to have him in our life to accommodate him is gonna have to be large. And that means having to throw out certain things about ourselves, denying certain parts of ourselves. I don't think I even have to like share this. Like, this is written over and over again in the Bible, where God has instructed us to deny certain things of ourselves, to deny our lives, to die in order to live through him and live within him as well. So yeah, I just thought this was such an interesting topic to discuss. And yeah, I'm just gonna like talk about in general how I feel like this reluctance to change is affecting me, how I feel like it's affecting others, and how we can overcome this, how we can pray and move forward from it. So yeah, I hope you guys keep tuned. The funny thing is that growing up, one thing I used to always be afraid about was being told by people that I know, or like my friends, that I have changed, which is like, this is really funny to me. My worst fear was people around me not recognizing me anymore, which I can't lie, did hold me back in terms of my walk with Christ. I was scared of the perception that friends or my family would have of me if I was to suddenly stop doing the things that I used to do, or suddenly change the way I talk, change the way I dress, change the way I act. I didn't want to alarm people by like transformation. I wanted to be the same. I wanted to be able to stay within the same spaces as I was. I wanted to belong, and it wasn't because I was forced to, or it's not because these people told me that they will love me less if I did change, but it was more because it's what I was familiar with. I did not know what it would look like to change and have the same community or be surrounded by the same people. I didn't know what that would look like. I didn't even know if that could even exist for me. And I guess I was afraid of that. I was afraid of losing people. I was afraid of losing myself, or losing the idea that I thought was me rather than, who I am meant to become or who I'm meant to be. So I just had that fear. But now that I've grown a bit more, now that I'm 24, next year 25 is knocking on the door, my biggest fear now is 100% people from my past, people that haven't seen me for a long time, or even the people that do know me right now, coming to me and talking to me and saying, "Oh, Christine or Fikayo, you haven't changed at all." That is now my worst fear. Compared to when I was like, I wanted to be the same, I wanted people to be like, that used to be a compliment to me. However, now, if somebody was to come to me and say, "Oh, yeah, you haven't changed, you're the same," I think, not that I think, I know that I would cry. And I know a lot of people like that deep to cry. Like, how bad can you be that, oh, your old self, how bad could your old self be enough for you to cry if somebody comes and tells you that you're the same as that? And no one seems to understand. It's not that they understand, but no one knows how insecure, number one, how low in confidence, how anxious, and I'm going to say it, how depressed I was prior. And to say that I have not changed from that state, from that mentality, that I have not grown, you have seen no growth in me in the last couple of years, that is my biggest fear. And especially now that I've invited God in my life, to be told as a Christian that I haven't changed, that I haven't transformed, means everything I'm doing or any prayer that I have is literally all for nothing. I have not been renewed in any way. Perhaps I've gained some knowledge, but you're saying that I have not been renewed, I have not been made new. And what I'm doing right now, the steps that I'm taking right now, is not working. And that is like my worst fear, to be said, to be told that I am the same, that I have not matured, that I have not taken the steps into becoming who I know I am and who I'm also called to be. That scares me. And if that doesn't scare you, then I feel like you need to deeply reflect on that. Genuinely, I think we should all be scared of that outcome of being told that we are the same. Everyone should be afraid. That is not our goal. That is definitely not my goal, and that definitely shouldn't be your goal as well. And I'm gonna discuss and break down why I think that shouldn't be our goal, why we should be scared of such statements, why we should aim for people to always tell us you are not the same. And you may ask, okay, Kyle, what has made you so fearful of being the same or staying the same? And the way I'll answer this is I had a realization, an epiphany, you can call it that, an epiphany. I am the biggest dreamer that you'll find. Literally, ask anyone close to me. I can dream out the entire world for you. I can dream out an entire future. I can map it. I can tell you where I'm going to put my imaginary boats. I can tell you where I've placed the stable of my imaginary horses. I can tell you of the orphanages that I know I said I'm going to build in Nigeria. I'm going to build in South Africa. I'm going to build here. I'm going to build there. I can tell you about the charitable work that I said, my money that I'll have in the future, how it's going to grow 10 times over. I can tell you that. I can dream it all out for you. I love the idea of change. I love the idea of my life completely transforming, like one of those fairy tales that you'll like read. And as a result, I will discuss this with friends and we'll all dream together and I will be praying. We'll all pray together like, God, elevate us. God, take us to this higher status. I'll be in church. I'll be praising. I'll be thanking God. I'll be like, God, please elevate me. Like, elevate my finances, elevate my career, elevate my, like everything, anything. Quite literally asking God to elevate and fulfill these dreams that I have. Now, when I come back home, either from church or I come back home from discussion with my friends as we pray about our dreams, what do? I get straight into bed and I do not do a thing after that. Maybe watch what's on Netflix. I don't make a singular change as to what I usually do. Now tell me, how am I able to make my dreams come true? Or how am I able to fulfill the callings I know God has called for me to fulfill? How am I able to do that when I come back home and do the exact same things as I do the day before? Each day that I ask God to elevate me, each day I'm asking God to change me and change my circumstances, whilst also putting little to no effort to make those changes happen. Of course, I will remain the same, but I know that there has to be one or two other people out there that does the same exact thing as I do. What we are basically asking is we're asking God to help us grow a garden without planting the seeds in the soil. We're asking God to water seedless soil. We're asking God to grow trees when we haven't done the digging, we haven't cut out the weeds. We are literally asking God to change and transform something that has not even been placed. It has not even been put into place, and we're asking God to change it and transform it. How can God work with literally nothing? And I know He's a miracle working God. Of course, He can, but when we don't put in that effort ourselves, when we don't put our best foot forward, how can God bless our hands? And it just made me realize that I am asking God for a breakthrough without wanting Him to break me, without wanting Him to mold me and break me and shape me into what He has called me to be in order to fit into that position. Let's say God is holding a block for us and it has a circle in the middle. However, we are shaped as a triangle. A triangle cannot fit in through that block. There's no way, because it's not shaped, it's not put in the correct shape that it needs to be in order to fit through that circle. Therefore, God has to mold us and shape us and shave off the edges and circulate us in order to put us through that hole and make it through. But when God starts to shake things up, when He starts to cut and shave off our edges so that we're able to fit through the doors He has called us for, when people around us start falling off, when certain environments that we grew up in we can no longer stay in, we start to feel an attack, like we start to view it as an attack, and we start to rebuke what is actually there, or that what is actually meant to be refining us. But hear me when I say this, the things that we feel are destroying us or we view as destruction in our life is actually God constructing us into who we're meant to be. It's God rebuilding us to fit in where He wants to place us into. The reason why we may feel like our life isn't changing, our dreams aren't being fulfilled, isn't because God isn't answering our prayers, and it's not because God isn't listening to our prayers, but it's because rather we stopped listening when He required us to change, when He required us to quit that job, when He required us to move from that area, when He required us to change our bad habits, change certain aspects. We said no. We decided to close our ears and say, no, God, you have to find a way around us. But there is no other way apart from the way that He has constructed, and that path is only through Him. So when we look back as to why our dreams and why our lives are not progressing further, we have to then look back at, and we have to realize, because things are shifting or things are changing, it's not God taking it away from us, but it's rather Him removing the things that can no longer carry us forward anymore, and He's replacing it with things that are supposed to move us forward. And if we stop Him, or if we try and prevent that process, we will stay stagnant in the same position, and we will see no change in our lives. We will see no progression. And then we'll look back to God and say, God, I've been faithful to you, but you haven't changed. My circumstances haven't changed. But God can't change the circumstances. Sometimes it's not even the circumstances that need to change, it is you. Um, One example I can give is this podcast for me. I think, like I said in like my past couple videos, I have said for a while I wanted to start this podcast. I have felt it in my heart to share my thoughts or to share my voice and yeah, just lay onto what my own interpretations of life with the world. And I had been reluctant to do that in the past, even though I wanted to do it and I've been passionate about it and I felt like it was laid into my heart. Now ask me why I had refused to do that. The reason why I had refused to do this, the reason why I had delayed starting this podcast for so long was because I was just like, have to do it in my bedroom. It's not aesthetically pleasing enough. Maybe when I move out, maybe when I'm in a nicer room, maybe when I like paint my walls, or maybe when I do X, Y, and Z, maybe when I get more money, I can rent out a studio, or maybe when I change my jobs, I'll have more time to record videos upon videos upon videos. I was giving myself excuses, but God spoke to me and said that I don't need to change a single thing about my environment. It's not my circumstances. I don't need to change my job. I don't need to change my location. I don't need to have more money so I can rent out a studio. What I need to change is myself. I need to change my willingness to do more. I need to change my laziness. I need to be more proactive. I need to be more passionate. I need to seek more of him, rather than I need to let my passion for him be stronger than the aesthetics I'm trying to portray. What needed to change was my hunger for him, my hunger to share, my hunger to be part of his kingdom and building his kingdom, rather than the aesthetics of my room and how people may perceive me, or maybe how people will perceive my environment. Because at the end of the day, it wasn't my environment that needed to be changed, it was me. I didn't need a fancy studio. I didn't need any of that. I just need my phone, a ring light, and a little microphone, and that's it. I just needed to change me, and I needed to change my own heart posture. I needed to change my confidence. I needed to change my passion. I needed to change my laziness. I needed to change my ego. I needed to change my pride, not my environment, not my job, not the money, not my financial situation, but rather me. Now, if I hadn't decided that, okay, I'm going to be more passionate, I'm going to be less lazy, I would not have started this podcast. That's the honest truth. Maybe you wouldn't even be seeing this video, or the last two videos I've made. You wouldn't have been seeing it. You wouldn't have been hearing my voice at all. Would have delayed this process, the beginning of something. End of the day, we can't ask God for a new season while still trying to remain in the old one. We simply cannot do it. You can't ask to move forward while still trying to cling into the past, or trying to cling into old cycles or your old self. It's like a butterfly saying that it still wants to remain as a caterpillar. It still wants to have the same habits as a caterpillar whilst also trying to be transformed into a butterfly. It's not possible. A butterfly cannot be a caterpillar at the same time. It either has to remain a caterpillar or it has to turn into a butterfly. It has to either remain where it is or be transformed completely. And that's what we need to decide for ourselves, whether we want to remain as a caterpillar or whether we want to be transformed into butterflies. Weird analogy, but it works. I think the biggest reason why I have been reluctant to change in the past is more because I am comfortable. I was comfortable where I am. And now let's like dive that word comfortable. To say that somebody is comfortable in their situation, we may view it as like they must be happy there. No, not necessarily. Because in my comfort, I feel unfulfilled. I feel restless. I feel sad. I feel like I'm supposed to be doing more, but I'm not doing more. I feel the pull to do more and be more, but because I'm comfortable, because I'm familiar with where I am now, because I'm familiar with what is less, I decide to stay there. Being comfortable has nothing to do with whether we're happy where we are, but rather more with because we're familiar with where we are. When we are familiar with an environment or we're comfortable within an environment, that means we are able to control that environment. The reason why I was comfortable in certain situations or comfortable with where I was currently in life was because I knew it so well that I could control each aspect of what was happening within that situation. And the fact that I felt the need to control where I am currently, the fact that I feel the need to feel comfortable where I am, means that I don't fully trust where God is saying that He needs to take me in the next season. Because what I'm saying is, God, I trust you, but I can only trust you as long as it's in an environment where I can control it and where I know what will happen next to me. That is not real trust at all. It's basically me saying, God, I trust you, but I trust you as long as you do it how I want it to happen, or where I want it to be, or how I want it to look like. That doesn't work. We know that doesn't work. But the thing with faith is that faith begins where our comfort ends. Faith starts in the situations where we're not comfortable. It's like when Peter walks on water with Jesus in Matthew. When they were on the boat, the winds were strong, so were the waves. However, Peter calls out to Jesus, like, Lord, let me walk with you, call me to you. And he begins to walk on water as well. Now, it was in a situation where they were scared, in an unfamiliar situation where they cannot control the weather and they cannot control how strong and fast the winds were and how strong the waves will crash, that Peter had faith to walk on water with Jesus. Although that faith does slip when the unfamiliarity, where the like it goes above his comfort zone, that faith does slip in which he then falls into the water. However, it's just that beginning stage where we are uncomfortable in that the situations we feel like it's the most dangerous, the situations where we're the most uncertain with, that is where our faith begins. Like in Romans 12, verse 2 says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. We can't renew our minds if we keep trying to feed it the same lies that makes us feel safe or keeps us safe. The thing about comfort is that it will disguise itself as peace. However, comfort is not peace, it's rather avoidance. Peace comes after obedience. It does not come before it. And one excuse that we like to give ourselves to make us feel better about our lack of our change is this saying that it says God tells us to come as we are. And I won't sit here and deny that, because of course God tells us to come whether we're broken, whether we're tall, short, fresh, big, skinny, whatever, however you are currently, God does say come. It doesn't matter where you were before. Doesn't matter at all. And I wouldn't come and tell you that that's a lie. No, it genuinely doesn't matter at all. The way you come, which shape you come in, it does not matter at all. Just come as you are to God, come before Him. He will accept you, He would accept you wholeheartedly. However, that come as you are, I feel like people have abused it to an extent, because although God says, come as you are, He never said anything about staying as you are. Never ever said anything about such things, about staying as we are. No, come as you are, but just know you will not stay the same. And I'm not saying that the change will be immediate, because obviously it's a slow process. It's like putting clean, fresh water into dirty water. Over time, the clean water will wash out all the dirty water until there's nothing but clean water. Being filled by the Holy Spirit, it comes, for some people, it can come faster. For others, it's a gradual process. It's about breaking old habits and creating new habits. It's about, I'm not saying that there's a timeline or there's a rush for these changes. The end result always be that there is a change put in place. Because I have seen so many people trying to condone certain ways that they may live, or certain ideas that they still have, certain aspects of their lives not being fully dedicated to God because of, oh, He's told me to come as I am. There has been no effort on your part. And I'm speaking about myself as well. There's been no effort to change. That is something I have realized for myself as well. There's certain aspects in my faith walk, although I have come to God and I know He's accepted me and I know that He loves me, but I am still refusing to change certain aspects out of my own comfort or even my own fear. However, we cannot stay that way. Although He says, "Come as you are," He says nothing about staying as you are. Nothing about that. The Bible talks about transformation, it talks about renewal, it talks about birth after death, it talks about denying oneself, it talks about carrying our cross, it talks about giving our life, giving our old life so we can have a new life. It talks nothing about come to me and do exactly the same things you've been doing before you met me. If you've met God, if you've had the experience of Him in your life, it will be evident. Like I said before, like I said in the beginning, our God is too big and He's too big for us to hide. If God is in your life, you cannot hide that. It's not possible. Therefore, there will be evidence of change. So, as you have come as you are, just know you are not staying the same and you shouldn't want to stay the same at all. Because what is after is much better, is bigger than what we can fathom in our heads. The peace that we'll have, the peace that we have been told that we'll have from the world is not the truth. It's a lie, it's an illusion. When we refuse to change, we can not only can we just delay our purpose, but perhaps we can even destroy it if we continue to refuse to change and refuse to be molded into the image that God has for us. Because at the end of the day, purpose requires transformation. Moses, he couldn't have stayed in Egypt and still led Israel. David, he couldn't still be in the fields and still sit in the throne as King David. It's not possible. When God has called you for a purpose, there's no way you can still be that same person you were before. There is absolutely no way. Because when God has called you for a purpose, you are going to be transformed by that purpose because you become something that you thought you were supposed to be into something that you are meant to be. And that transformation has to take place in all of our lives. Every purpose requires a death, whether it's a death to pride, a death to ego, a death to self, a death to familiarity. I can't say that word, but a death to familiarity, whatever it is, every purpose requires a death. And this is where many of us get stuck because we pray to God to elevate us, but we don't allow Him to educate us. We want influence without refinement. We want calling without cleansing. We want purpose without process. It's not possible. To achieve one, you have to go through the other because purpose always comes with pruning. Because in John 15, verse 2, it says, "Every branch that bears fruit, He prunes so that it'll be even more fruitful." There is always something that can be lost with it. And one of those things can be relationship, it can be friendships. Because when you're called to a higher purpose or a higher level, those around you can't necessarily understand. They will no longer fit into certain places. Again, like I said, with the analogy of a block with a circle, and if you've now shaped yourself to be a circle and fit through those walls, through that block, then those who are still shaped as triangles, who are still shaped as squares, there's no way that they can follow you through. And we sometimes our certain connections could be blocking us from the correction that we need to be elevated to a certain level. And I can talk about this from the opposite end. I feel like before I decided like a change was needed for me to be put in place, um, I definitely lost some friendships because they had changed and they had elevated. Like I said before, I'm a dreamer. I can dream whole worlds, and my friends or the people that I was with could also dream these same things with me. However, there was a point where I had allowed my own anxiety and depression to get to me, where I wasn't motivated to move forward. And my friends were able to elevate themselves, they were able to pick themselves, and little by little, the dreams that we were dreaming, they were fulfilling them, they were making steps towards them. And as a result, perhaps I was left behind. um and I wouldn't say that left behind like in, oh yeah, they purposely left me behind. It's just after a while, when you're elevated to a certain level, people cannot bring, like, you can't bring certain people with you. If you refuse to change, there can be people that you could lose because they are being elevated to a higher level, that you refuse to follow them into it because you're defensive, because you're pride, because you're too lazy or you procrastinate. And as a result, it can also happen the other way, where you're being elevated to a higher calling, higher purpose, and those that you want to bring along with you aren't able to shape themselves in the same way that you have. So yeah, it can go either way in terms of change. But at the end of the day, we have to follow the purpose that we're called for and accept the losses, because those losses are ultimately replaced with something higher, something that's able to carry us forward. And another point is that staying the same doesn't just affect your mindset, but it also affects your spirit. It hardens your heart. When you know God's call to change, it can harden your heart. It can stop you from hearing clearly. It can make you lose sensitivity to His presence. And that's why you can maybe feel that distance from God, because it's not that He stopped speaking to you, it's not because He stopped hearing you, but it's because you've stopped obeying Him. And especially when He's trying to intercede in your life, He's telling you the next step. So if you're not hearing Him, then there's no way you can get closer to Him, and you then begin to start to feel that distance. Hebrews 3:15 says, "Today, if you hear His voice, do not harden your hearts." Because every time you ignore your conviction, your heart gets a bit harder, and every time that you postpone your obedience, your spirit gets a bit duller, and we mistake you, and soon you begin to mistake that the silence is absence, but it's rather our own coldness to what God has called us to be or called us to change. And at the end of the day, staying the same can be dangerous because it leads to stagnation, which ultimately leads to separation if we're not careful. And one thing about change, it will always make you uncomfortable. There's no such thing as a change that doesn't make you uncomfortable. When I want to change my hair, it hurts. My head is tender. It's uncomfortable. Whether it's sitting in that chair for hours, whether it's the braider tightening the braids on my head, it hurts. It's uncomfortable, but it's needed to happen in order for me to transform how I look. Same way with if you have to change new shoes and you're getting used to it and you're breaking into it, it hurts. It's not comfortable at the start, but you're changing. That's what happens with change. That's what comes with change. It's like a seed that's been planted for a tree. Before the seed sprouts into a tree, it has to break into the soil, it has to break in the dark, and that breaking and destruction can be painful, but at the end of the day, it leaves and it grows into something grand and it grows into something big. But before that happens, that break has to happen first. Before you can be transformed into something bigger than yourself, you have to break first. That breaking is the only way to release what is in the inside. And that's what God is doing in some of our lives right now. He's breaking comfort, He's exposing patterns, He's revealing who you truly are on the inside. And we just have to allow Him to do His pruning process in order for us to be fruitful within His kingdom. And we can't delay that process for Him. He's stripping you of what you thought you needed because He knows that it's limiting you. But listen, discomfort is not rejection, but rather it's redirection. So In general, real change isn't loud. It's not like a social media post. It's the quiet things. It's character. It's growth in your humility. It's growth in your discipline. Is taking that step, even whether as small as maybe deleting a number that you know you shouldn't have. It's perhaps maybe apologizing first. It's perhaps making the first move. It's perhaps serving first. It's That's just change. It's the small things. It's letting the Holy Spirit convict you and actually changing and responding to it. That is what growth is. Growth is. It's being convicted, and not just being convicted, but responding to that conviction and not ignoring it. That is what changes. And you may be listening to this and thinking, or maybe it's your birthday as well, and thinking, wow, I've wasted a year with no change in my life, doing the same things that I was doing last year. I've lost faith, I've lost people, I've lost opportunities. And I'm here just to tell you that God restores. In Joel 2, verse 25, it says, I will restore you the years that the locusts have eaten. So if you're still breathing today, if you've woken up this morning, if you're listening to this podcast, just know that as long as that has happened, there's always chance for growth, there's always a chance for change, there's always a chance for purpose. But that doesn't mean that you should delay your obedience, it doesn't mean that you should delay your purpose anymore. Start responding to that change from now. Start responding to God. Start looking for, whether it's like small, whether it's like you need to wake up a bit earlier to start that project that you've been thinking of starting, or to write that book that you've been thinking of writing. Just doing one word a day, or reading a chapter of that book, one word a day, or one chapter or page a day. That is still growth. That is still headed towards the correct direction. It doesn't have to be grand, as much as people like to tell us that, oh, change has to be this huge thing, this grand thing. It doesn't. It can always be the small things. That is the beginning of it all. What is God calling you to change? What is that thing that you feel like has been holding you back? What are those chains that you know you have put on yourself, and it's just time to break that? And what can you do next to start heading towards the correct direction that you're supposed to head toward? Are the habits that you have to let go of, or the people that you know you have to let go of, or the situation, or that circumstance, or that personality trait? What do you need to let go of tomorrow? And yes, letting go is going to be painful, the change is going to be painful, but honestly, that change is worth it. It's definitely worth it, because that change is one step closer to that peace that we're all constantly chasing. And today, I just feel like we all need to make that decision to change, to surrender, to obey, and to choose our purpose over all other things, and our passions over all of other things. And yeah, stop delaying your dreams, stop delaying what will fulfill you, stop delaying God's calling for you, and see how your life can be transformed, and how it will be transformed for the better. Anyways, guys, that is it for today's podcast episode. I really hope you guys were able to gain something, and I'm really glad that I discussed this. Like, I came to my own revelations during this episode, and it's just encouraged me more not to waste another year. This year of 24, like, it's going to be a year of continuous growth, of me continuously heading to the purpose that I am that I know I'm called for, as well as not slip into these old habits of, how I've been feeling, because I've definitely been feeling that way. And just a reminder not to slip back into repeated cycles, but rather start new cycles and new habits, and walk into that walk into the space that God has called us into. And yeah, that is it for this week. I really hope you guys have enjoyed this podcast episode. Again, don't forget to share. It's available on YouTube and Spotify. Share with friends and family, and I hope to see you next time.